Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed, and I'm happy to take you through a new chapter, Surah Al Mu'minun, the chapter of the believers. So before we get into it, let me explain what we're doing here. This is a channel where I'm learning about the Quran and sharing my learning journey with you. I learned Arabic in school, but not studied it beyond that. I have not studied the Quran. In fact, this is my first read through for a lot of the Quran. Trying to see what I can understand, starting with specifically exactly what the Quran says, and focusing just on the words for now. But if you have a different perspective on something, please feel free to let me know. I would love to learn from you as much as I hope that you can learn from me too. Yeah, that's all I have to say. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, and off we go.
قد أفلح المؤمنون.
Here it says the believers have been successful. قد أفلح المؤمنون. It does feel like this is talking about the past, because it talks about believers and what they have done, and it will describe the believers in a few verses to kind of talk about who they are and why they have been successful. But because I guess it's like talking about it from all points of time, it can talk about future believers as well. But whenever you read this verse, it talks about from the moment that you read it that all the believers before it had been successful. قد أفلح المؤمنون. Successful are the believers.
الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون.
The ones who are in their prayers humbly submissive. خاشعون من الخشوع. There's like a feeling of like reverence, a feeling of like being humble, a feeling of like, if you're able to like successfully execute a prayer is when you're able to fully immerse yourself in the prayer and fully immerse yourself in the idea of the act that you are praying to God, that you are worshiping to God, that you are convening with God, that you are making yourself humble. And this was something that I had struggled with when I first started praying, because the instinct for a lot of, I don't want to make generalization, but I think for a lot of our generation is to go fast in prayer and just say the words and kind of go with it and not necessarily fully feel what you're saying. And I've gotten a lot better at it nowadays. I've definitely slowed down my prayer a lot, and I'm able to kind of visualize it. But also, we're asked to pray 5 times a day, and it's hard to maintain that level of focus while you're praying each time, which I guess is what this is kind of, it's saying that those believers who are able to do this will be successful. So it is something that we want to aspire to. But the more that I pray and the more that I act in a sense of khushu', in a sense of humbleness, in a sense of reverence and humility, the more that prayer becomes something that can kind of calm me down and become a meditative process in a way. It's a mindfulness, it's a reminding you of your position in relationship to God, in relationship to the world, and remembering to surrender to God and have that trust. And there's a kind of peace that comes with that perspective. So it's definitely something that I'm working towards, and I'm a lot closer to it than I was before, but it is an ideal of prayer that we're kind of aiming for.
والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون.
Yeah, and those who around vain talk, idle talk, sometimes known as gossip, turn away. So there's a lot that is being said within this one verse. What is lahu? What is idle talk? What is vain talk? What is gossip versus communication versus this happened with this person? And sometimes humans are social creatures, so we do like to talk to each other about what is happening, about what is going on, but there is a certain classification of conversation that can be considered idle talk or vain talk, And I think the distinction for me, as I understand it, is it's like it's not like talking for talking's sake, but maybe in a way it is. I also don't fully understand the term laghu. I could tell you that there were times in my life where we kind of talked about it, and gossip is the first thing that comes to mind. It's like, oh, my kid, did you hear what this person did? Did you hear that person said? Oh my God, and then she did this, and then, oh, this person's saying this. They're kind of like talking about people. But I don't feel like that captures the expression quite well. And then also, like, it is human to just chit chat, right? It is human to just talk to your friends, to your family, to kind of just make conversation. And not all conversation is supposed to be profound and extreme. So it's not like saying you can't, talk about simple things or talk about things that aren't grand or kind of just talk about the day. But I think it's describing a specific type of talk. And it's not just gossip, because like gossiping about someone and talking negative about them is given another term in the Quran. There's a chapter that comes to mind, the slander and the backbiter. So there is a specific description of those who talk negatively about others behind their back, and that's not just what this is referring to. So it's not just gossip, but it does feel like vain and idle talk, unfortunately. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, my flatmate was leaving, so I had to say goodbye to her. Okay, cool. Yeah, so yeah, I don't fully understand what lahu exactly means, and maybe someone can kind of explain it to me in the chat a bit better. It's not exactly gossip, but it is a part of it gossip. A part of it is kind of maybe like talking about things that we don't really know or don't really understand. Um, that's not an accurate description, because trying to learn from other humans is also kind of the key. Idle talk. It's hard to kind of classify. I don't fully understand. If someone can explain it to me better, I would appreciate that.
والذين هم للزكاة فاعلون.
And the believers are the ones who they do the zakah, the alms tax. So the reason why it's called zakah is purification is the correct expression of what that word means. And the reason why you give a portion of your wealth to the needy and to the poor is to kind of purify your wealth, to be like, okay, you know what, I have to make sure that I give back from what I receive in order to purify it. That purification is the intention. Zakah means purification and growth. Paying alms tax for charity are forms of purifying one's wealth, is exactly that kind of concept. To give back to societies. And in an ideal situation, in an ideal society, if everybody pays alms tax, if everybody gives to charity a specific portion of it, then our societies will be a lot healthier and we'll head towards a direction that's quite good.
والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون.
Okay, and we get into something quite interesting. And those who, for their modesty, are guardians, for their chastity, are guardians, and then it shows you a small footnote, for their private parts. When I first read this, I was like, oh, this doesn't really feel like it's talking about private parts. But then let's take a look at the next verse to kind of get a bit of a better understanding of what is being said here.
إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين.
All right, and this is it's been 6 verses. Why not say something controversial? But first, it says they need to guard their modesty, their chastity, their private parts, except from their spouses or what possesses their right hands, then indeed they are not blameworthy. Now, possesses their right hands is an expression that has been used to understand bondwomen, bondmen, people like the slaves that you own, which raises a bunch of questions, right? To their spouses makes a lot of sense, especially if you're talking about chastity, and especially if you're talking about private parts. Okay, you're only supposed to show it to your spouses. But the term "ma malakat aymanuhum" is like, then are you allowed to expose yourself to slaves that you own? Which also is like, what does this mean? How does that make sense? How do we kind of reconcile it? When Safa and I were first reading this in chapter 4, which has a lot more of this phrase and a lot more of the discussions, we also talked about an alternative meaning, because the phrase is what your right hand possess. So in one example, and also there's two ways to look at this: the right hand or their oaths, the possessors of their oaths, which then changes the kind of meaning of it to be like, okay, to your spouses, the ones that you're married to, or whom you have given an oath to, is another example. It is not obviously what the popular belief is. The popular belief and understanding is that this is talking about bondwomen and slaves. And for all intents and purposes, I think this is how it was understood at the time of the Prophet, and I think that kind of made sense. But in the time of the world today, where we don't have any more slaves, does that mean that this is obsolete, or does that mean that it changes into something different? Does it mean that you should only reveal yourself to those who you give an oath to? Which another example of those who you give an oath to are those who you are in a relationship with. Now, again, this is why I said it's going to be controversial, because I am saying something that the majority of Muslims do not believe or do not accept. But we have to think about what these verses are saying and what their possible meanings are. So guiding their chastity. And I feel like chastity is more like their modesty. Because we do also see an example of, I was thinking about prayer and how do you dress appropriately for prayer. And it is about guarding your chastity. And there are other examples of like what Adam and Eve were wearing in heaven. Even though they were naked, they were wearing their dignity, their righteousness. There is kind of an element between all three to kind of think about that. But yeah, I mean, being able to show your spouse your private parts makes sense, assuming that it is private parts. And furujahum, for all intents and purposes, that's what it means. I googled it up. No way that I just come when you're talking about chastity. Hey, James, it's been a while. Long time no see. Chastity doesn't make sense for the term furujihim. Private parts can make sense. Ma malakat aymanuhum, what the right hand possesses, can used to refer to slaves, but can also mean relationships. There are multiple meanings of it, and obviously the Quran's meanings can change over time based off of what we see. We do not see. And it says, indeed, they are not to be blamed. I'm going to disregard that last comment because I'm addressing the Quran seriously. It's difficult. And the concept of chastity and how you have to preserve it and whom you can preserve it to and under what conditions are you essentially allowed. It doesn't talk about sex, but it talks about who you can be private with. So, for example, then comes the concept of like changing rooms. In Europe, changing rooms are a place where you can kind of easily be around others fully nude. And then the question is that something that is, against the perspective? I don't know. There's question marks. That was the subscription, by the way. Yeah, I saw that you subscribed, James. Thanks. It's nice to see you again, by the way. It's been a while since you've been on this channel.
فمن ابتغى وراء ذلك فأولئك هم العادون.
And then just to echo the statement of what happens if we are talking about private parts, then exposing your private parts to anyone outside of those who your right hand owns or who owns your oath, and those of you who married, then whoever seeks from after that, so whoever goes beyond that, then those are the ones who are transgressors. Meaning that if this is understood in its most simplest terms, that you must guard your private parts unless it's for you, your spouses, or ma malakat aymanahum. I'm not going to try and explain malakat aymanahum. Then you are transgressing if you're doing beyond that, which is a bit of a challenge.
والذين هم لأماناتهم وعهدهم راعون.
Now, for me, this is a bit easier to understand. The believers are also those who, for their trust and their promises, they are observers. They are not observers. Ra'i is like not was the one who looks like a shepherd who looks after sheep. Like a ra'i is someone who watches out after something. So they're watching out for their trust and their promises. They kind of, they're people of their words. If they say something, they're going to do it. If they promise something, they're going to do it. Trust here, it kind of talks about what they own and their promises. What they own and what they promise, they are observers, wary, careful. They're watching out for it.
والذين هم على صلواتهم يحافظون.
And those who over their prayers are guarding, they're maintaining, they're observant, they're committing to their prayers. Those are the good believers.
أولئك هم الوارثون.
Those are the ones who will be the inheritors. Here it says they'll be rewarded, but inheritors is the specific term that is being used. And there is an example of we will inherit the earth. And I feel like there's a lesson to be learned in all of that, which I don't fully understand just yet. So we'll keep that for a while.
الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون.
Or we will look at it in exactly the next verse. Those who inherit paradise, and they are in it abiding forever. And it's interesting that they say inherit paradise, because I've always had the question of like, will the earth get replaced with paradise? Because there's a lot of times that it talks about swapping the earth with a new earth, and then there is a concept of heaven on earth. Is this the perspective that they're talking about, and the paradise will be on earth and they will inherit it and they will stay? So I'm curious. Or will we move into heaven? And is that tied into the heaven in the sky? Is what's in the sky right now where we go to as paradise? Lots of questions.
ولقد خلقنا الإنسان من سلالة من طين.
And now we see the human creation story, things that the Quran could not have known a human couldn't have known 1,450 years ago, but the Quran did reveal. It says, and indeed we have created humankind from an essence of clay. And here they always bring about Adam. And then it talks about how a human is formed, how they're growing, in what order, in what steps.
ثم جعلناه نطفة في قرار مكين.
Then we placed him as a semen drop in a resting place that is firm, as a sperm drop in a secure resting place. We talked about it in Al-Hajj 22:5, and it kind of talks about it in more detail now, and it kind of talks about the formation of humans, which is kind of miraculous.
ثم خلقنا النطفة علقة فخلقنا العلقة مضغة فخلقنا المضغة عظاما فكسونا العظام لحما ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين.
And then we created the semen drop into a clinging substance. A clinging substance, here they're translated to a clinging clot. Then we created a clinging substance, the clinging substance into an embryonic lump, into a lump of flesh. Then we created the clinging clot and developed the clinging clot into a lump of flesh. Then we created the embryonic lump. Then عظاما فكسونا العظام, bones. So then we clothed the bones with flesh, and then we produced it as a creation that is new. So here they're saying then they developed the lump into bones and then clothed the bones with flesh. Then we brought it into being a new creation. And here they're saying this is what happens when the spirit is breathed into the embryo, which is kind of an interesting point. Obviously, it just says, then we produced a creation that is another. And this kind of brings into a spicy conversation, which is more of a topic of conversation in the United States of America than it is over here, which is at what point of the pregnancy is it considered human? What point is it considered a human and you should not terminate the pregnancy before, or are abortions completely illegal? Now, from the Muslim perspective, abortions in general are a no-go, and this is not a discussion to be had in the Middle Eastern countries. You just can't have an abortion. But that's why I pointed out the United States of America, because that's where they're kind of trying to take a look at when is the point where an abortion makes sense. Obviously, some people are like, as soon as you're pregnant, you can't have an abortion, and that you should never interfere with God's creation. Obviously, this is not making any claim for abortion. It is just talking about the process of creation and how it's semen to clinging cloth, then into a lump of flesh, then into bones, and then we clothe the bones with flesh. It's not a lump of flesh, it's just a cloth into a lump, and then we developed a lump into bones and clothed bones into flesh. And then it says, ثُمَّ أَنْشَأْنَاهُ خَلْقًا آخَرَ. And then we produce it as a creation that is another. So it does indicate that there is a specific moment. And here they're adding, the footnote adds what happens when the spirit is breathed into the embryo. Sure, we don't know. That's not what the verse is saying. That's what the footnote is saying. So we kind of have to make a distinction between the two. But just the fact that the Quran knew this from 1,450 years ago, before anything could be found out, is miraculous in and of itself. And it ends with, so blessed is God, the best of creators. And we had seen in the previous section the example of the fly being so small. If you think about how a human is formed, how we're kind of made, what makes our souls into our bodies, how are we this meat sack of flesh, organs, and bones and brain, and somehow it all works together, and it is incredibly complex. It is incredibly beautiful and incredibly majestic, and in it you can find faith.
ثم إنكم بعد ذلك لميتون.
Then indeed you are, after that, surely going to die. Who's going to die? We're all going to die. Everyone's going to die.
ثم إنكم يوم القيامة تبعثون.
Then indeed you are on the day of resurrection resurrected. And you might think, oh, well, this is ridiculous. How can you say that we're being resurrected? We'll get to that objection in just a few seconds.
ولقد خلقنا فوقكم سبع طرائق وما كنا عن الخلق غافلين.
Now I find this verse interesting, because it says, and indeed we have created above you 7 paths, 7 ways, 7... It says 7 levels of heaven, and this is what I've seen from other verses of the Quran. There is a description of 7 heavens. And there is a concept that there are above us 7 heavens, which this is why I said there's a difference between paradise and the heavens above us, and what's in the heavens, and what level is it. And obviously we have the story of the Prophet Muhammad in Isra wal Mi'raj when he went up to the 7 heavens. But here specifically it says, we've created above you 7 paths, not heavens. The exact word is paths, 7 ways of movement. And it says, and we are not about the creation unaware, which is like, what does the 7 paths above us have to do with the awareness of creation? And is this a metaphorical path that you must ascend to through your deeds, that you're kind of slowly ascending spiritually? Because that would kind of make sense to me, right? If it's a path, then it's something that you can go through. But it's maybe not your physical body, but your spirit that can ascend while your physical body does the thing. And there is this concept of qareen in Islam, which we haven't really touched upon much. But qareen is your spiritual counterpart. The more good deeds you do, the better it becomes. The more bad deeds you do, the worse it becomes. It's like a mirror reflection of you in the spirit world. And that kind of is the first thing that comes to mind when it says, above you are 7 paths. And we are not of creation unaware, which means that everything that you're seeing, everything that you're doing is maybe being evaluated upon the 7 paths, kind of. Which kind of like ties into like much more philosophical conundrums and concepts of like ascension. And I know we touched upon reincarnation briefly, obviously not a philosophy that is shared by a lot of Muslims, but it kind of indicates an interesting perspective on our role, on our ascension, on our return to heaven, that is maybe more conceptual. But this is, again, a lot of thoughts that I'm having just based off of the phrase 7 paths, not 7 levels, nor heaven. It doesn't mention it. But we do understand it to be of heaven. And I do want to make a difference between heaven and paradise, because they are different words for those different perspectives. And it has to do with being aware of creation. So that's kind of where I'm making the conjecture that I am.
وأنزلنا من السماء ماء بقدر فأسكناه في الأرض وإنا على ذهاب به لقادرون.
And we sent down from the sky water in a due measure, like we send down the water exactly as we want it. So we cause it to settle in the earth. And indeed, we are on, and if we wanted to, we are surely able to take it away. And water is a common expression, a common, almost a synonym for life, a replacement, a symbol for life. And we kind of see it. When water comes down, plants grow, vegetation grows, we get to succeed and survive. And when the water is taken away, societies crumble and struggle, and drought becomes quite a difficult thing for us to do. So here it's saying the water is being sent down in exactly as in perfect measure is the it doesn't say it in perfect measure, it just says in measure, and we understand it to be like, the right measure, and we can take it away.
فأنشأنا لكم به جنات من نخيل وأعناب لكم فيها فواكه كثيرة ومنها تأكلون.
And the example of water producing life is, and we have produced for you by it gardens of date palms and grapevines, and for you in it fruits that are plentiful, abundance of fruits, and from them you eat, again sustaining life, giving you food.
وشجرة تخرج من طور سيناء تنبت بالدهن وصبغ للآكلين.
And a tree that springs forth from Mount Sinai in Egypt, which produces oil and a relish for those who eat, an condiment for those who eat. Now, when I first read this, I was like, what are we talking about here? Is it a specific tree? And why are we talking about a specific tree on a specific mountain? And like I got into an example of like, a tur is a mountain with vegetation on it, with trees on it. A jabal is a mountain without vegetation on it. And are we talking about a specific tree in Sinai? Why are we talking about a specific tree in Sinai? That produces oil, which is kind of like a very interesting perspective, and a relish for those who eat. And it's kind of the concept of like putting oil on foods, kind of softens the foods, kind of enables you to eat it better. It has a lot of benefits. Oil is a very olive oil is a very unique. That's why it says olive trees, because they're assuming that oil is coming from these trees, therefore it must be an olive tree, which is a fair conjecture. And olives are a very specific pride. For instance, as a Palestinian myself, olive trees hold a special reverence and a special place in our hearts. But this is talking about a mountain in Egypt. So why is it talking about? And I looked at Mount Sinai and I was like, why is it addressing that specific mountain? I'm very curious about this tree on the mountain. What does that mean? Very, very curious why it's specifically singling out the Mount Sinai mountain. Oil as a condiment of sabrin, which kind of means like a paste and a relish for those who eat. And there was also like a reference to somebody talking about it, but it's like oil, which is used as a condiment. Condiments being obviously ketchup or mayonnaise or whatever.
وإن لكم في الأنعام لعبرة نسقيكم مما في بطونها ولكم فيها منافع كثيرة ومنها تأكلون.
And indeed, for you is in cattle surely a lesson. We give you a drink from what is in their bellies, and for you many other benefits, and from it you eat. The first thing that always comes to mind here is, recently, like some of the ideas and popular understanding of humanity is like, why are we drinking milk from cows or goats? We're not supposed to be drinking these things. They're not made for us. They're made for the cows and the goats. And it's like, no, people have been drinking from cows and goats for millennia. Like, sometimes I do struggle with the modern understanding of what is but you have to pasteurize it and you have to do it and you have to do that. Well, or you just drink the milk fresh and you kind of appreciate it. Like people have been drinking milk from cattle long before pasteurization was possible. Pasteurization is kind of designed to help us preserve the food and preserve the milk for longer, and also kind of remove any specific bacteria. But humans have been doing it for quite some time for a reason, because it works. And I think we sometimes diverge away from nature a bit too much. And anyway, here it's saying there's a lesson in the cattle. And the lesson where we drink from what's in their bellies, and we have other benefits, and from it we can eat. Like, it does feel like cattle is designed for us to benefit from, which a lot of people are like, no, we have to, take care of animals and animal rights, which, listen, I'm all for animal rights, but I'm also all for using them for how they're designed. They give us a lot of benefits. They give us fur, they give us wool, they give us meat, they give us milk. And I think it's just the circle of life. Sorry. But yeah, for me, that's the lesson. The lesson is that this world is designed for humans, is my perspective. The lesson that I learned.
وعليها وعلى الفلك تحملون.
And you're carried upon the cattle and upon the ships. You're carried upon the cattle and upon the ships. Again, benefits of all these things that have been made available to make humans succeed.
ولقد أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه فقال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره أفلا تتقون.
And verily we had sent Noah to his people, so he said, O my people, worship God. You do not have any God other than him. Then will you not... Fear is not the right word. Be mindful. Keep him in your mind. Be wary. The same way that you would like a flame, an open flame. You're mindful of it. You're not afraid of the flame, but you're kind of keeping it in mind. You have to watch out. You can't leave without, thinking about it. You have to make sure that you kind of don't have anything dangerous around it. It's not fear. Fear is not the right word. Mindful is the right word. And here we're going to see two stories. One about Noah, and one we're not told about what it is. But generally, the model is simple. Noah, messenger, comes to people, tells them there's only one God. They deny him, and they say the same thing over and over again. Let's see what they say.
فقال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه ما هذا إلا بشر مثلكم يريد أن يتفضل عليكم ولو شاء الله لأنزل ملائكة ما سمعنا بهذا في آبائنا الأولين.
So the chief of those who disbelieved said from his people, this is not except a man. He's like you. He wants to assert his superiority upon you. And if there is this God, and if God had wanted, he would have sent down angels. And then we would know. We have not heard about this from our forefathers. None of our forefathers had ever heard about this. So who is this man coming to tell us that there is one God and only one God? And remember, Noah was the first since Adam. Adam was obviously the first, but Adam didn't come to a people. Adam produced all the people. And then over time, you can kind of see that people disconnect from their faith and move away. And it seems to be human nature to forget and to disconnect and not know why you're here, especially if you're hearing it like hearsay. You kind of disconnect from this idea. So Noah is kind of the first to bring back God's message to a people that did not know. So Noah comes down and tells people, and they're like, "We never heard of this before. What are you talking about? You're just a man." It's important that they say he's just a man, because the Quran often says all the messengers and prophets are just men. That's the point. They are just men, which is like the weirdest critiques. It's like, you're just a man. Yeah.
إن هو إلا رجل به جنة فتربصوا به حتى حين.
The other claim, indeed, he is only a man, which we know. In him is madness. Mad. So wait concerning him until a certain time. Let's see what this. So he may recover from his madness or die. Interesting. But essentially, they say that he's just a man, and they also say he's insane. And there is something to be said about insanity and faith. There is some, and that kind of feels like the critique that a lot of atheists have of the faithful, that you are insane. You are believing in a God that you cannot see, hear, touch, or feel. You're believing in angels that you cannot hear, see, touch, or feel. You're believing in an afterlife that you have no reference for. You have no experience. Nobody has been to the afterlife. Also, many people claim, but when they claim that they've been to the afterlife, they're like, you're crazy. That's the first thing that you do. And there is a fear that we have in the world around us. The fear is that we are mad. There's a fear that you've lost your mind. You're no longer a functioning human. You are insane. You are crazy. And I would even argue to have faith is an act of madness in a sense, because you're believing that which you cannot validate, but your heart tells you to be true. And like the challenge with that is some people who are mad, their hearts tell them something is there or it's not there, and they're wrong because their brains are compromised. Is that the kind of the compliment? So what makes the difference between a faithful and an insane person? I also have my beliefs that an insane person usually has some sort of spiritual connection that we cannot understand. But there's something about madness. Yeah. But yeah, so he's just a man, and he's mad, is the critique. which, yeah, to have faith, I think you must be a little mad, because it's like, I don't mean it in a derogatory sense. I don't mean it that you're crazy if you have faith in God. I just mean that you need to have a belief in something that you cannot validate, that you just feel. You're living your life based off of a feeling of faith, not something that you validated, not something that you tested for, not something that you have evidence for. You just have this feeling and you're going forward. And that is, in a sense, mad, because you're not basing it on from a scientific perspective. It's mad, but I don't think of it as a bad madness. I don't fear madness. I don't fear it. I also had the wonderful privilege of losing my mind so publicly on Facebook, where everybody thought I was crazy, and I was like, okay, well, if everybody thinks I'm crazy, then the worst of it is over. Like, what am I afraid of? I'm not afraid of people thinking I'm crazy, because they already think I'm crazy. So I could just go on and move forward in the direction that I believe. There's something liberating about being perceived as mad. And there's also something frustrating, because if you are a prophet or a messenger and the people think that you're crazy, then it's just like, I'm trying to warn you, I'm trying to help you. Yeah. And that's the thing. If somebody is a prophet or a messenger and they're claiming that God is here and be careful, you're going to be careful, like he's warning you about a serious pain, it's mad to everyone else around him, because they have no evidence, they have no suggestions, they have no frame of reference. And then all of a sudden there's this person telling you that you're going to suffer because of something that you can't see. Like, I can completely understand why the people didn't really understand it or believe it. It's hard to have faith, especially if you've never encountered something before, right?
قال رب انصرني بما كذبون.
Now, we've covered Noah's story quite some time. He calls out to God, help me, because they have denied me. I've tried to tell them, I've tried to pass on the message that you've told me, but they've denied me. Help me. What do I do?
فأوحينا إليه أن اصنع الفلك بأعيننا ووحينا فإذا جاء أمرنا وفاردت النور فاسلك فيها من كل زوجين اثنين وأهلك إلا من سبق عليه القول منهم ولا تخاطبني في الذين ظلموا إنهم مغرقون.
So we inspired to him, and we don't quite know how God inspired to him. Did God speak to him directly? It does feel in other parts of the Quran that he was speaking to him directly, but the word here is used inspired, al-wahi, awhayna. For instance, how it was inspired to the Prophet Muhammad, we understand it to be that the angel Gabriel came and relayed the message to the Prophet Muhammad. Awhayna ilayhi, so we inspired to him that he should construct a ship under our eyes, and we inspired that when it comes, our command, فَإِذَا جَاءَ, when our command had come and gushed forth al-tanur, which again, the literal meaning of the word tanur is the oven, but I, for some reason, feel like it's the name of a mountain. I don't know why. This has no basis in anything whatsoever. The concept of it being al-tanur, the oven, bursting forth with water, doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. I just assumed it was a name because I could not understand the visual. But maybe that's a limitation of my understanding. But anyway, the flood came, essentially is what you're saying. And it says, then put in it from every mate 2, from every animal 2 animals, and your family, except who has preceded upon him the word al-qawlu minhum, who has preceded on them the word. Now here, they always translate it to against whom the decree has already been passed. I understood it before as they've been given the warning and they didn't hear it and they didn't listen to it, which also indicates that the decree has been put upon them. But for me, it puts the blame upon the person for not listening to the word that has proceeded upon them. But here, who are we talking about? Like, for instance, Noah's son. Noah's son in one of the other chapters was kind of talked about. He was non-believer, and Noah had built a ship, and he was on the ship, and the storm was coming. The storm that Noah told everybody the storm was coming, and his son was still like, "No, I'll get up on the mountain. I'll be fine." And then his dad's like, "Get on the damn ship." He wouldn't say damn ship, but you know what I mean. So his not his whole family, but his whole family, except إلا من سبق عليه القول منهم, which can mean those who was decreed upon them, or those who were given the warning and they didn't listen. And here it shows how God was talking to Noah, and do not address me concerning those who were wronged. Indeed, they are the ones to be drowned, including Noah's family. Some of Noah's family survived, some of Noah's family did not.
فإذا استويت أنت ومن معك على الفلك فقل الحمد لله الذي نجانا من القوم الظالمين.
Then if you have boarded, you and whoever is with you upon the ship, then say, praise be to God, thanks be to God, glory be, alhamdulillah. I prefer it to being thanks be to God, but I mean, that's, if you're praising God, you're essentially saying you deserve the credit for what's happening, and for me that translates to thank, because also hamd can mean thank. Praise be to God, the one who saved us from the people that are wrongdoers. And here it's just a clear instruction. When God saved Noah and the people on the ship, he asked them all to be thankful and to be praising. And we've had critiques of the Quran and critiques of God. Why does God need you to pray? No, God does not need you to praise. You need you to praise, because by committing that praise to God reminds you to be humble, reminds you to trust God, reminds you to put your faith in Him.
وقل رب أنزلني منزلا مباركا وأنت خير المنزلين.
And always ask God for support and help in the direction, and say, my Lord, my God, cause me to land in a landing place that is blessed, and indeed you are the best who cause those to land. You're the best accommodator. You choose what's best for us. And it's again reminding us, A, give praise to God, give thanks to God, and B, trust in God to guide you to the path that you're supposed to be in.
إن في ذلك لآيات وإن كنا لمبتلين.
Indeed, in that is surely signs, and indeed we are surely testing. We put people to the test. I said surely signs. They said surely lessons. It could be both. And we always put people to the test. And this is also to think, Noah, as much as he's praised, as much as he's remembered, as much as he will generally, his story will live on till the end of time, till the end of this world. And probably the end of the afterlife, but anyway, I don't know if there is an end to the afterlife, because we're supposed to stay there forever. Anyway, also had to face tests, is what I'm trying to say. Even Noah had to face tests. We all have to face tests, because this life is not heaven. A lot of people mistake this life for being heaven. A lot of people mistake this life for saying, oh, why doesn't God make everything easy for us? Because that's not what this life is about. This life is a test. This life is something that you have to strive for, that you have to do better, that you have to improve, that you have to work on.
ثم أنشأنا من بعدهم قرنا آخرين.
Then we produce from after them a generation that is another. We've raised another generation after them, and the cycle repeats.
فأرسلنا فيهم رسولا منهم أن اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره أفلا تتقون.
Then we sent in among them a messenger from themselves, that they should worship God, that you do not have any God other than Him. Then will you not be mindful? The exact same thing that Noah said, And you'll notice here, it doesn't say who, because this applies to all the messengers after Noah. All the messengers come with the same message. There's only one God. Will you not be mindful?
وقال الملأ من قومه الذين كفروا وكذبوا بلقاء الآخرة وأترفناهم في الحياة الدنيا ما هذا إلا بشر مثلكم يأكل مما تأكلون منه ويشرب مما تشربون.
And the cycle repeats. And the chiefs of his people, those who disbelieved, said, and they denied, and the chiefs of the people, the ones who disbelieved and denied in the meeting of the hereafter, and that we had given them luxury in the life of the worldly life. We'd given them a lot of luxury. They denied the hereafter. They disbelieved. They said, surprise, surprise, the cycle repeats, this is not except a man who is like you. He eats from what you eat, and he drinks from what you drink. Yet again, the critique has always been about the messengers, that you are just men. And the whole point of them being men is that they're just like you. God is sending a person from among your people. If there were angels that he was sending to, he would send an angel to them. If there was people, he would send a person to them. Like, it's just, yeah. It's funny that the reason why a man is being sent is the thing that they question the most.
وَلَئِنْ أَطَعْتُمْ بَشَرًا مِثْلَكُمْ إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا لَخَاسِرُونَ.
And they continue saying, and if you obey a man just like you, then indeed you are the losers. The irony of this is they want the people to follow them. They are also men. But they say, if you follow this man, you will be losers. And I don't know why Donald J. Trump comes into mind with the word losers. Losers. Sorry. But yeah, the irony of the chiefs telling them not to obey a man, but why they themselves are giving a command that they want to be obeyed, the irony is completely lost upon the people listening and the people saying it. Like, how do you give a command saying don't listen to somebody who's just a man when you're a man giving a command? It's just facepalm.
أَيَعِدُكُمْ أَنَّكُمْ إِذَا مِتُّمْ وَكُنْتُمْ تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَنَّكُمْ مُخْرَجُونَ.
Remember when I said in a few seconds we're going to talk about that criticism of coming back and being sent forth to Judgment Day? Well, 35 minutes later, here we are. Does he promise you that if you die and you become dust and bones, that you will be brought forth? And I like the next verse. Hayhata hayhata lima tu'adun. Impossible, simply impossible what you are promised. But that is in tomorrow's episode, because this star indicates the end of the section and the end of today's episode. And I thank you for staying tuned. I always, before, like, sometimes, some days I'm not feeling good. Some days I'm not feeling great. And some days I'm not, like, you know, like, I doubt myself. Like, why would I talk about Quran? What do I know? Who wants to listen to me? Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? Like, I have so much doubt. But then I read the Quran and I try to talk about it, and I'm filled with ideas and concepts and guidance and hope. And it's like, it's amazing how forgetful humans can be. Because I've been reading the Quran for quite some time now, and I forget every time that I'm in a bad mood or dysfunctional, or not in a bad mood, but just not feeling it. I forget that reading the Quran brings me joy and brings me happiness and excitement and activates parts of my brain that makes me excited. I always forget, and I'm reading this 5 times a week at least. Anyway, that's I just wanted to share that little bit of tidbit with you. I'm very happy to be reading the Quran. I'm very happy that you've joined me along this journey, and I will catch you guys not tomorrow because it's the weekend. Catch you guys on Monday, inshallah. Sadaq Allahu al-Ali al-Azim, as usual, and مع السلامة. Get out of here. Love ya. Bye.